try to confuse me with facts. I expect most of us here consider ourselves to be fairly rational people, and that previous statement sounds just a little silly. But are we really that much different in our attitude toward what we think we know? There's been a good deal written in the last few years about how people react when their beliefs are challenged by facts that contradict their convictions. Rather than adjust their worldview to accommodate new information, most people simply cling more adamantly to their now discredited ideas. It appears that once we find something that seems to work for us, we almost never let go. This characteristic has an even wider implication for our entire society. For example, we tend to not criticize the social order in which we live, simply because we're bound within it. And all new information is pre-filtered to be consistent with our established biases. In other words, we tend to only pay attention to that which reinforces our beliefs. The downside of this behavior is fairly well articulated in a quote variously attributed to Will Rogers, Mark Twain, Josh Billings, and several others. It ain't what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. Let's examine something we all know for sure. Competition is a natural element of human nature, and it's the best way to improve productivity, creativity, efficiency, motivation, and prosperity. This could be considered the mantra of the American society at large. We tend to accept this almost as revealed truth, immune from criticism. Look at the myriad examples of competition in our lives. Competition for grades in school, in sports, competitive performance in the workplace, keeping up with the Kardashians. Okay, that last one may not be universally applicable, but you get the idea. Competition is so common in our lives that it may as well be the air we all breathe. We turn nearly everything into a contest where there must be winners and losers. And the idea that competition is of a great benefit to society is so pervasive, it stands almost completely unexamined. So let's take a look at what it is, what it isn't, and what it does to us. There are a number of myths that exist concerning competition. The first is the idea that competition is just a part of human nature. Whenever I hear the human nature argument, I tend to grit my teeth and my blood pressure rises about 20 points. Now that's because historically this premise has been used so often to further egregious practices like slavery, sexism, racism, and war. Since the burden of proof rests with the person who asserts that a given characteristic is part of our nature, it's reasonable to expect there be a great deal of evidence to support this claim. Surprisingly, that's not the case. The competitive nature of humans is simply asserted as if it were obvious, and ignores the fact that the very essence of human society is cooperative activity. If competition is a natural element of human nature, then it should be universal across all cultures. And a single example of a culture where cooperative behavior is the norm would falsify that premise. Is there such an example? Actually, there are quite a few. The Tangu of New Guinea, the Inuit of Canada, the Aborigines of Australia, the Zuni Indians, the Iroquois Indians, and several other American tribes. It's our culture that creates and maintains this structural state of competition, where my success depends on your failure. We're exposed to constant reinforcement of this. Oh, look at reality TV. No, I take that back. Nobody deserves that kind of punishment. But note that nearly every one of those programs involves some form of contest. You know, competition even pervades our religious institutions. I read recently where the Pope met with his cardinals to discuss a proposal for Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel. Mr. Netanyahu challenged the Pope to a game of golf to show the friendship and ecumenical spirit shared by the Jewish and Catholic faiths. Well, the Pope thought this was a good idea, but he never held the club in his hand. "Don't we have a cardinal to represent me?" he asked. "None that plays very well," one cardinal replied. "But there is a man named Jack Nicklaus, an American golfer who's a devout Catholic. We can offer to make him a cardinal and ask him to play Mr. Netanyahu as your personal representative. In addition to showing our spirit of cooperation, we'll also win the match." Well, everyone thought this was a great idea. So the call was made, and of course, Nicklaus was honored and agreed to play. The day after the match, Nicklaus reported to the Vatican to report to the Pope the result. "I have some good news and some bad news, Your Holiness," said the golfer. "Tell me the good news first, Cardinal Nicklaus," said the Pope. "Well, Your Holiness, I don't like to brag, but even though I've played some pretty terrific rounds of golf in my life, this was the best I've ever played by far. I must have been inspired by love. My drives were long and true, my irons were accurate and purposeful, and my putting was perfect. With all due respect, my play was truly miraculous." "There's bad news?" the Pope asked. "Yes," Nicklaus sighed. "I lost to Rabbi Tiger Woods by 3 strokes. Who benefits from this preservation of this structural state of competition? As is the case in so many aspects of our culture, follow the money. Competition in our society perpetuates the status quo. In school, competing against others for grades and engaging in competitive sports activity prepares young people for a place in a bureaucratic society where they'll be so focused on competing with their peers for position, they'll be disinclined to participate in organized cooperative activity for broad societal benefit. Divide and conquer is still an effective strategy for keeping people fragmented and ineffective. Now, even with all the emphasis on the importance of winning in sports competition, we do make a passing effort to teach young people good sportsmanship and some level of cooperation. At one point during a Little League game, a coach said to one of his young players, "Do you understand what cooperation is, what a team is?" And the little boy nodded in the affirmative. "Well, do you understand what matters is whether we win together as a team?" And the little boy nodded yes. "So," the coach said, "when a strike is called, or you're out at first, you don't argue or curse or attack the umpire. Do you understand all that?" Again, the little boy nodded. "Good," said the coach. "Now go over there and explain it to your mother." We think of good sportsmanship as a positive value in our culture, but it's kind of interesting to realize that in a cooperative game or endeavor, any good sportsmanship, like a fish needs a bicycle. A friend of mine once told me, "I'm not good at sports, but I like parallel parking, because unlike sports, the worse you are at parallel parking, the more people you have rooting for you." I want each of you to think of 3 competitive games you played as a child. Got it? Good. Now, think of 3 cooperative games you played as a child. Okay, I'm not going to wait any longer for that one. I'm afraid we'll be here well into next Wednesday. One of the first games I remember playing was at a birthday party. It involved music, 11 other children about my age, and a number of chairs. You may have seen or played this game yourself, where during intervals, the participants compete to find a seat on fewer and fewer remaining chairs. Until at the end, there is one red-faced future bully and 11 disappointed, pissed-off 5-year-olds glaring at the winner. this is fun. I heard about this one rather clever father who reimagined the game rules of musical chairs to make it a cooperative party game. You see, the goal of the group was to find a way by cooperating for every child to have a place on one of the remaining chairs. The final result was similar to telephone booth cramming, where a dozen laughing children were clinging in various contortions atop the sturdiest chair in the house. Now, I heard an objection from one fellow who missed the entire point of cooperative rather than competitive games. He said, I've seen games played where they don't keep score and then the kids are rewarded with a trophy. I think that's pointless and just plain stupid. I have to agree on a number of counts. First, playing a game that's designed to be competitive and not keeping score is pretty pointless, especially if the game isn't itself enjoyable on its own. Now, clearly, the advocates of sportsmanship would also have us recognize that it's not whether you win or lose, it's by how much you win or lose. And secondly, giving an award for something that should be rewarding in and of itself undermines the enthusiasm and motivation for playing a game for its own sake. There are few purely cooperative activities in our culture, but there are a few. If you've ever been part of putting on a stage production of any kind, and I know at least half of you have here, you know you only succeed when everyone else involved is also successful. The sense of accomplishment and friendship experienced by cast and crew on a really great stage production is almost indescribable. When I speak of the joy involved in cooperative activity here, I'm literally preaching to the choir, because singing together is another one of those rare collaborative efforts where my success depends on your success, and the result is great music. Of course, the same is true playing in an orchestra, band, or other musical group. Conversations with many of you have made me aware of a number of other examples of purely cooperative activities, such as participation in the Peace Corps, Habitat for Humanity, Meals on Wheels, Samaritan House, and many other volunteer activities. I believe it's no coincidence that the effort to extend a helping hand to others is typically manifested as an activity that is free from competition. Working with others toward a common goal encourages us to embrace the ideals of respect for others and the recognition of the inherent worth and dignity of all people. While pervasive competition promotes an us-them mindset that makes it easier to disregard the needs and even the very humanity of other people, cooperative endeavors highlight our shared values and can raise our appreciation for the ability of others. Most religions recognize the deep human desire to feel that you're a part of something greater than yourself. And while many people challenge that desire into a reverence for a deity or a feeling of oneness with nature, or an idea of cosmic harmony, it can also be fulfilled by connecting in a meaningful way with our fellow human beings. Unfortunately, competition is a great impediment to creating and maintaining that kind of connection. Now, many people attending today who may be new to Unitarian Universalism, especially any first-time visitors, I know this is probably not the kind of sermon you were expecting to hear. And if you strongly disagree or take issue with anything I say today, I want to assure you, you're going to fit in here just fine. Many of you, including longtime members, may be surprised to learn that there is such a thing as a Unitarian Universalist hell. It's a place where everyone always completely agrees with you. Another myth about competition is that it motivates us to do our best, and We would cease being productive if we didn't compete. Truth, virtually every scientific study on the subject from 1924 through 1980 shows just exactly the opposite. Splitting your attention between doing your best and undermining or beating an opponent pretty much guarantees you'll not do your best. The desire to win at all costs has a decidedly corrosive effect on ethical behavior. Witness sports doping scandals in recent decades, or Wall Street misbehavior. Or video news segments displaying pre-Christmas Black Friday shoppers beating each other senseless over the last $10 blender. The third myth is the idea that competition is the best method of achieving a high level of efficiency and prosperity. For efficiency, duplication of effort is inherently inefficient. And as for prosperity, well, the extreme wealth and income disparity we see in our society today argues very strongly against competition as a means of delivering great prosperity for all but a very few. Finally, how about creativity? Does competition motivate us to be our creative best? Again, the answer is no. In one study, a group of 7 to 11-year-old girls was instructed to make silly collages. Conducted as a double-blind experiment, half the participants were told they were competing for prizes, while the other half were not. 7 artists then independently rated their works on each of 23 dimensions. The result? Those children who competed for prizes made collages that were significantly less creative than those made by children in the control group. Children in the competitive condition produced works thought to be less spontaneous, less complex, and less varied. It's said you must first recognize you have a problem before you can begin to solve it. We live in a hyper-competitive society that creates many, many problems, cleverly marketed as benefits. The challenge is to be aware of the true nature and result of competitive thought and action, and then recognize those times when we can choose to have an influence toward more cooperative behavior. Am I suggesting we just sit around in a circle and holding hands and singing Kumbaya? Not at all. As much fun as that might be. What I am saying is that the physical universe supplies a more than sufficient number of challenges to keep us engaged by pooling our intelligence, talent, and efforts. One of the encouraging signs I see in society today is the rise of collaborative efforts such as Wikipedia and the online RNA and protein folding games that utilize the wisdom of crowds. There's also the open source movement that started in software design and has now moved into areas of engineering and social reform. Our current level of technology is more than adequate to provide all the necessities of life for everyone on this planet. Fully 50% of all food produced in the United States goes to waste. Yet worldwide, 1 in 7 hasn't enough to eat. More than 1 in 3 hasn't access to that most basic element of sanitation, a toilet. In our own country, homelessness is a national disgrace. As a species, we must do better. Our systems have failed us, and the status quo has become intolerable. A change is never easy or comfortable. And change to the fundamental structure of society seems a monumental, if not impossible, undertaking. Where do you start? Well, the answer is as easy or as difficult as changing your mind. We need to face facts about what is and is not working in our society, and then have the courage to change our worldview based on those facts, and not claim to I know what I know. question what you know. Question everything. Because frankly, we need some new answers. As we rise in body or spirit, sing our closing hymn number 90.